So, Namaskar and welcome back once again, friends, for the next lecture. In this lecture, we are going to talk about some more concepts that will help us understand the diaspora policies and diaspora realities, especially in the first world, Canada, US, and Europe. So, there are these three very important terms like melting pot, cultural mosaic, and salad bowl. So we try to make sense of them one by one. These are all metaphors and they stand for a cultural reality or a cultural policy that has been adopted by these nations to address the issue of migration and diaspora. So, melting pot as a term was first used in the United States as melting together in the context of melting of immigrants in America with fusion of nationalities, cultures, and ethnicities, as described in the writings of J. Hector St. John D. Cleveco um, and all. So, it's a metaphor used primarily to describe the assimilation of immigrants into a dominant culture, particularly in the context of United States. It suggests that people from different backgrounds, ethnic, cultural, linguistic, come together and blend into a single unified national identity. The term came into its existence with Israel Zangwill's play, The Melting Pot, received as celebrated America's capacity to absorb and grow from the contributions of its immigrants, and it is a monocultural metaphor for a heterogeneous society becoming more homogeneous, the different element describing cultural integration or cultural amalgamation. So the basic idea was that, like the ingredients in a pot that melt together to form a new substance, immigrants said distinct cultural identities and merge into one cohesive society. The term, as I said, became popular with Israel Zangwill's play of the same name, The Melting Pot, and there Zangwill wrote, and I quote, America is God's crucible, the great melting pot where all the races of Europe are melting and reforming. So, in the American context, this melting pot has historically been used to describe immigration to the US, especially from Europe, and it promoted a vision of America as a place where everyone could become American by adopting English, embracing American values, and letting go of foreign customs. So, this concept expected all the people migrating to US, leaving behind all their culture and cultural learning, and becoming part of one dominant culture. And that is why this has been seen by many as a trap led by the US for, or as a condition led by the US for all the immigrating population, um, to follow the American culture blindly, setting off all their identity. So it has been critiqued. This idea has been critiqued because people have said that it's an attempt at erasure of identity, um, because it is often assumed that assimilation means conforming to white Anglo American norms, which marginalized non European cultures uh, are forced to do, and so they are further marginalized, or their cultures are not recognized at all. This also creates a kind of power imbalance, in that, uh, despite setting off the cultural past and merging or melting in this pot, we still find that, all the people are not treated as equal, or they are not treated as equally Americanized. While the whites are treated as Americanized, the others are not treated the same way. And that is the reason Bharati Mukherjee came up with the concept of, let's say, sojourners and settlers. And she said that all the Europeans, the white Europeans who made a move to America, they were treated as settlers, while the people from other races who came from other parts of the world, despite landing in this land quite early or almost simultaneously, they were never granted the status of full citizenship, and were always treated as sojourners who will go back to their countries, leaving America should the situation improve in their country. So we find that, in this particular concept, there is this power imbalance in which the whites have more say compared to black indigenous people, Asians, and Latin communities, who are basically, forced to assimilate, and they face exclusion and forced assimilation also. Another criticism of this idea is loss of diversity. Since everybody is expected to, follow one dominant culture, leaving aside all individual cultures and identities, this leads to, loss of diversity, and in a way pressurizes people to abandon languages, traditions, and beliefs that they are born with. And again, it has been criticized for promoting the myth of equality, uh, while it has been perceived that there is a mask of systemic inequality that is a part of this power structure. So, this particular idea of America was criticized for, in a way, forcing all those people who come to America to subscribe to the dominant American way of life. And so, that was a kind of heavy price that was demanded of them. And so, to challenge it, there were other metaphors that were suggested, like salad bowl. Salad bowl was a concept in which different ingredients or cultures coexisted, retaining their unique flavors and contributing to the whole without melting and forming new whole, or let's say a new culture, a dominant culture. There was another concept of mosaic, the cultural mosaic, in which each cultural group uh, is a tile in a broader picture, creating beauty in diversity. There was another term that was suggested, tapestry. The cultures has woven together, intertwined, but not erased. So we found that melting pot was a kind of monocultural metaphor for a heterogeneous society becoming more homogeneous at the different element describing cultural integration or cultural amalgamation, in which different cultures were, you know expected to come together and form a single dominant culture. And so we find that this comes in contrast with the theory of multiculturalism that assumes that various immigrant groups will tend to melt together, abandoning their individual cultures and eventually becoming fully assimilated into the predominant society. And it saw its emergence from the Chicago School of Sociology, its assimilation theory in 1920s. And Warner and Stroll also remarked that assimilation theory posits that immigrant assimilation was a necessary condition for preserving social cohesion, and thus emphasized a one sided monodirectional process of immigrant inculturation leading to upward social mobility. And but later on, as I said, it was looked at as a sophisticated ideology by US, a systematic eraser of the cultures of those who were intending to go to America and contribute and flourish there. In 1845, R.W. Emerson uh, expanded Crevecoeur's idea, describing America as a utopian product of a culturally and racially mixed smelting pot, which resonates with melting pot. So, Miller in Citizenship and Nation Identity points out, and I quote, citizenship provides a reference point. Our personal lives and commitments may be very different, but we are all equally citizens, and it is as a citizen that we advance claims in the public realm and assess the claims made by others. So, this was in a way a kind of justification for melting pot, that as a nation, if we follow the same traditions, the same culture, the same thought process, the same philosophy, as a nation we become strong. So this promoted unity, the sense of unity. And so this theory redefined the concept and solidified the idea that national identity can be made up of multiple identities fused together under one single national emblem. In other words, it promoted a sense of community and social solidarity. But as I said, in doing that, it was not successful, in the sense there was no equality, there was no diversity, and there was privileging based on race, in which the white race was the dominant class, and all other marginalized groups were supposed to subscribe to their views. So, and again, practically also, it was not possible for people to completely do away with their memory, imagination, instinct, passion, and their histories. So, it was a little uh, more demanding on the people who were migrating to the US. And it asked for complete assimilation, and so it in a way forced the minority groups who were induced to adopt customs, attitudes, and the cultural and structural characteristics of the dominant group. As I said, assimilating a group gives away one's previous identity and becomes similar to host countries' norms, values, behaviors, characteristics, and lifestyles. And this, again, I said, was very problematic. And that is why, this idea did not hold and came in direct opposition to the idea of multiculturalism, where it was believed to go for collective survival or coexistence of multiple distinct cultures, and look for unity through diversity, not through sameness. And in that, the people were allowed to play according to their strength, in that they were allowed to retain their unique culture, unique identities. And it also sought equity and inclusion rather than, exclusion and inequality. And but multiculturalism was more than an attempt to force people to melt and form one single whole, as an attempt at harnessing the benefits of cultural pluralism, uh, respecting the strengths of all the uh, cultures of all the people participating in that. We find how this has been showcased in the writings by Jhumpa Lahiri, like her Interpreter of Melodies, where the Indian immigrants navigate American life while holding on to their Bengali traditions. Likewise, in Sandra Cisneros' The House on Mango Street, we again find how a Latina girl uh, grows up in Chicago, balancing Chicano culture and American expectations. In Ngozi Adichie's Americana, again we find that Nigerian woman navigates identity, race, and immigration in both the US and Nigeria without fully melting into either. So we found that especially melting pot was an idea that was propagated in the early parts of 20th century, and where the immigrants were expected to quickly assimilate in American culture, speaking in American accent, adopting American norms, and policies like Americanization movement in the 1910s pushed for cultural conformity, and public schools and media often suppress the languages and customs of indigenous people. Uh, and At the same time, in 1970s, we found that Canada came up with its multicultural policy, uh, affirming the value of all cultures within a unified framework, and sought to celebrate plurality through cultural festivals, bilingualism. Like all of us know, um, there is this Anglophone and Francophone, so English and French, and protections of ethnic minority rights. Uh, but still, that has also been criticized because there are certain problems with its implementation, and at the surface level, we find that this idea of multiculturalism has not really materialized in Canada, where this has resorted to mere tokenism, and still there is an underlying systemic racism which still persists there. When we talk about this idea of cultural mosaic, it suggests a society where different ethnic groups, languages, and cultures coexist together. It's a metaphorical expression for mosaic. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So, the strength of a country comes from all its different cultures, vernacularly used in Canada in contrast to America's melting pot. Mosaic is pluralistic. Newcomers' cultures are preserved, retained, and integrated into the host culture, a process characterized by both intergroup contact and identity integration. So, mosaic is an assemblage of unique individual pieces of glass or stone, um, arranged to create a unified whole. All of us understand this concept in relation to flooring in our houses. The same is extended to cultures, where we find that people belonging to different cultures retain their colors and unique identities, and are held together by the cementing efforts of the garment, where each of them stands for uh, its own, but at the same time provides strength by its plurality to the existing structure. So, individuals retain their own individual properties and characteristics, yet contribute to a unified and meaningful entity. Cultural mosaic beliefs exist as a team individuals think of a group. So, capitalizing on diversity to enhance the group's work, this idea helps a nation harness the diverse approaches to problem solving or for enrichment programs of their cultures, their policies, and so on and so forth, openly expressing and welcomingly, accepting the expression of cultural diversity. So if we compare it to melting pot, this looks more accommodating, more pro to connecting with people and helping them retain their cultural identity, and at the same time participate as the citizens of the host land. It also acknowledges the depth of groups' cultural diversity. So, this cultural mosaic allows for simultaneous observation of global individual culture and localized cultural influences at the same time. And if we look at it in literature and art, we find that Rohinton Mystery, in his novel Such a Long Journey, explores the Parsi community in India and the complexities of cultural identity. And he says that, how these Parsi communities, by retaining their individuality, have still contributed lot of strength to Indian culture and India as a nation. Um, Dan Brandt's What We All Long For is another novel in which, set in multicultural Toronto, it shows how immigrant experiences intersect with each other. Michael Ondaatje's In the Skin of a Lion, we find how it reflects on immigrant labor in the making of Canada, preserving cultural histories that are often erased. So, these works show characters who don't have to choose between identities, they live in between or with many at once. So, the when we talk about the strengths of this particular metaphor of cultural mosaic, we can say that it encourages dialogue and mutual respect. It prevents cultural erasure or silencing of less prominent cultures. It fosters innovation through diversity, where we believe we always believe that two minds are better than one. So each people bring some kind of distinct philosophy, distinct mindset, and that really contributes to the final effect. But there are some challenges as well, like it can easily lead to cultural silos or self segregation, in which every culture might feel that it is a self contained world and will not interact dynamically with the other cultures. Uh, it can also risk a surface level celebration of culture like festival, food, without addressing systemic inequalities that still exist underneath. A case in point is Canada. And again, another challenge is that it needs strong intercultural education to promote true understanding, because we find that there are frequent encounters between cultures, because the people belonging to one do not know enough about the other, and that's why there are frequent problems. So a mosaic culture is about living together without losing yourself. Of course it is a hopeful model, but it certainly requires constant effort to ensure that all pieces are valued equally and not just included symbolically. Likewise, there is another important term, and probably this term takes care of the inherent flaws that are there in the earlier two models of culture, melting pot and mosaic. In this, we find that uh, we talk about a multicultural society, uh, and similar to the mosaic metaphor, it talks about the plurality, but with a twist. With a twist in the sense, while in the mosaic culture, we find that although the different cultures live together and they are pieced together superficially, and so there is less possibility of dynamic exchange between them, which cannot be said to be an ideal situation where people are living in peace but living dead in the sense, they are not interacting with each other. Uh, so uh, there needs to be a system in place where, all these people mix with each other, so much so that their cultural richness contributes to the final uh, you know uh, cultural richness or cultural diversity. So we find that this metaphor suggests that a society is like a salad in which each ingredient or cultural group remains distinct, but together they create a larger, flavorful world. In this view, diversity is not sanitized, it is celebrated, and rather than forcing assimilation, the society is enriched by the differences of its people. So, if we compare salad bowl and melting pot, we'll find that salad bowl is better compared to melting pot, because in melting pot, all the cultures, all the peripheral cultures are supposed to be melted in the dominant culture, losing their existence altogether, while in salad bowl, each culture contributes to that final or finished product. So, if we talk about salad bowl in real world societies, it is often associated with countries that emphasize multiculturalism, like Canada, Australia, United States, and uh, if we want to understand it through literature and culture, I would ask you to go through The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. This novel examines the lives of Chinese American women and their daughters who try to balance Chinese heritage with American identity while still retaining their roots, and there is no compulsion for them to really leave behind their life altogether or their culture altogether. In Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's Americana, again, we find how a Nigerian woman navigates the experiences of immigration in the US and tries to balance her Nigerian culture with her life in America. And if we uh, talk about this particular notion, which refers to integration, to the processes and the systems and structures in place to allow minorities or immigrant groups to attain opportunities afforded to long term citizens, and other societal goals such as improved socio-economic positions and inclusion in a broad range of societal institutions. As Berry observes, this particular idea of salad bowl is a welcome step. Jones defines an ethnic group as any group of people who set themselves apart and or are set apart by others with whom they interact or coexist based on their perceptions of cultural differentiation and or common descent. So when we talk about ethnic groups retaining their ethnic identities, we are talking about this. So there are two interesting terms, ethnic thickness and ethnic thinness. While ethnic thickness refers to a strong sense of commitment to one's ethnic group. The other one refers to looser sense of commitment to one's ethnic group. So therefore, salad bowl is a derivative process where there is coexistence of different ethnicities side by side in peace and harmony, with shared cultural and identity practices that serve their common good. So you can look at it, and you can make out the difference. While in one, everything melds to form an entirely a new product, on the other one, it looks much more colorful, in that every ingredient retains its individual uh, flavor while contributing to the final taste. So, but again, when we talk about the concept of salad bowl, which in a way promotes cultural enrichment, identity preservation, uh, preservation of cultural identity and heritage, and is an ideal concept, which accounts for acceptance of diversity, emphasizing tolerance and respect for differences rather than forcing everyone into the same mold. It still has some challenges. So, challenges like segregation. While cultures remain distinct, this can sometimes lead to cultural ghettos, or communities that don't fully integrate or engage with the larger society. So, there is always this kind of a danger. If you allow people to have their own way, these people might at times tend to sanitize their boundaries and will not break into other cultures, and so this will lead to cultural silos. There is also a risk of cultural stereotyping, where the cultures may be reduced to stereotypes, like labeling all Mexican food as tacos, or seeing all African American culture as hip hop. And then again, it might mean superficial level integration or superficial diversity, where cultural differences are celebrated only in the form of festivals or holidays, but deeper issues like racism or inequality still remain. So this salad bowl uh, concept also uh, results in a kind of delicate balance. While it values cultural preservation and distinctness, it also asks for interaction and mutual understanding, and the challenge lies in ensuring that the diversity within the salad is not just a collection of ingredients, but a truly harmonious and integrated society. So there are many such projects, like if we talk about the United Kingdom, a salad bowl in practice will find that the model of multiculturalism has been both the subject of celebration and criticism. Post World War II, immigration uh, to UK has saw an influx of immigrants from its former colonies, especially from India, Pakistan, and Caribbean, and later from Africa. And these communities brought their own customs, religions, and landscapes. Uh, the the UK government tried for community cohesion, and emphasizes on the integration of different cultural groups while encouraging cultural diversity, particularly during 1980s and 90s. Multicultural festivals were organized, like in cities like London, Birmingham, and Leicester, where we have found that this diversity has been celebrated through festivals, ethnic neighborhoods, and cultural centers. Notting Hill Carnival, a celebration of Caribbean culture, is also great example of how this idea of salad bowl has been brought to practice in the United Kingdom. So if we compare the three concepts that we discussed, like melting pot, salad bowl, and mosaic, we'll find that each of them had its unique formations, unique philosophy, but each of it also had its own limitations. While melting pot called for cultural assimilation into a single identity, salad bowl rejoiced in diversity within unity, where cultures remain in distinct but coexist. In the mosaic, cultural diversity was preserved in a unified whole, and so uh, as its focus, the melting pot asked for conformity to dominant cultural norms, while salad bowl insisted on cultural retention with equal participation in society, and mosaic revealed in equality of cultures within a shared space. So, as an ideal, melting pot expects everyone to blend in one culture, while salad bowl uh, helps them or allows them to retain their uniqueness while contributing. And in mosaic, the cultural differences create a collective identity. So in practice, the salad bowl model is about celebrating cultural diversity while maintaining distinct cultural identities. uh, but as I said, while all these three concepts are important as theoretical standpoints, we still find that none of them is really free from any kind of limitation. Still, this process is still on, and we have seen how the theoreticians like Homi K. Bhabha, Edward Said, Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak, and others have called for a system where the different cultural groups have dynamic exchange, resulting in a hybridity, where taking essence from their different cultures, they come up with a new cultural experience altogether. So friends, please remember these important concepts, because they will help you understand not only the cultural policies of different countries, but also the different coping mechanisms that the diasporic groups adopt in settling down in these countries. So, thank you very much. These are the references, and this is all. Thank you very much. We'll take this discussion further in the next class. Thank you very much.